Greetings and salutations everyone, I'm Ekimek. This is another introspective in Star Wars The Old Republic. We're going to start off today talking about modifications because I haven't confirmed it, but I've heard that they're being removed from the system, and that's really unfortunate. So what are modifications? Well, modifications used to be something that you did with an item mod station, but now you can just do it anywhere. Even so, we have it. Certain gear, and by certain I mean quite a lot of it, has its stats determined not by the gear itself, but by the modifications you install into it. So if you look here, this piece of armor has an armoring, a mod, and an enhancement. It also has a die module here, and if you go deep into the crafting system, you can build augment kits, which add an extra little bit of stat you can add to the item. I think a close comparison is materia from Final Fantasy XIV. The problem is it's a lot more of an investment than it is there. Because you have to build the augment kit, the correct augment kit, and then you've got to build the augment. This is where sliced tech parts come into it. But if we were to look at, say, a weapon, it has a mod and an enhancement, but it has a different, rather than an armoring, it has a hilt. And I don't think I have a gun to show it off with, but anything that works on technology will instead have a barrel. So it all boils down to interesting stuff. What does the... Armorings are made in synth weaving and armor mech. Barrels are made in arms tech. Hilts are made in Hilts are made in Hilts are made in artifice. Arms tech is where you make barrels. Mods and enhancements. It used to be that enhancements were made in Artifice as well, but now enhancements and mods are covered by the Cybertech. So, you pick out an enhancement, you make it. This is how crafting it, and this is something I forgot to mention in the last episode. Crafting got a slight adjustment a while back. So originally, equipment you made was made up of the compounds, it was made up of two types of gathered material and a crafting material which you had to get through vendors or through specific types of missions in those gathering classes. If you wanted to make the more advanced stuff, you'd need advanced materials that come from the specific mission profession. The stronger the item, the better the mission material you needed. So, to make tier 2, we'd need some Terranthium. But if we wanted to make tier 3, we'd need the very rare type of grade 1 underworld metal. And to learn the advanced recipes, you actually had to craft and then disassemble them. And there was a chance that you'd learn the higher tier schematic. You still have to craft and disassemble to learn higher tier schematics, so that's another unfortunate point. But I also need to point out this. This is a might mod. 6 mastery, 1 endurance. It's very low level. This is a reflex mod. 6 mastery, 1 endurance. We have 2 different mods that do the exact same thing. Why is this? Well, at the start of the game, you actually had 4 different primary stats. Might was the main stat for the Jedi Knight and the Sith Warrior, which this guy is right here. Willpower was the stat for Consulars and Inquisitors. Cunning was the stat for the Agent and the Smuggler. And finally you had Aim, which was for the Bounty Hunter and for the Republic Trooper. Each class also relied on the other main stat a little bit, but not in a way that you'd actually want that in your gear. Like the Willpower was for force users, was for increasing force damage. But on the Inquisitor and Consular specifically, it also increased their melee attacks. Well, the strength was for melee attacks, but on the Knight and Warrior it raised force damage. And you've got the same situation for the Bounty Hunter and the Agent, because they rely purely on ranged and tech abilities. The Force users rely only on their force and melee attacks. It's all rather confusing, so you can sort of see why they decided to just merge them all into one main stat. And I need to get this Cybertech option back open. So, now we have assembly components. The base materials, that is metals and compounds and crafting materials for this class, and as I've said with the others, all the stuff gotten purely from the Gathering class is used to make an assembly component. After you make the assembly component, you then combine it with a metal to create whatever it is you want, be it mod, earpiece, enhancement, whatever. And it's these ones that you can disassemble to get the violet grade version. It's all a long involved mess talking about things that are and aren't in the game anymore and might soon be out of the game completely, and that's actually really unfortunate because modding is... The thing is, at the moment you're able to completely... Your main appearance doesn't matter at all. Okay? You can just apply a costume like this. The thing is, the costumes don't include main hand weapons, or really any weapon that you actually wield, so if they get rid of modding, it means you're going to be stuck with whatever they give you. And that's unfortunate. All that said, let's talk about the Sith Juggernaut. Its parallel class is the Sith Marauder, its mirror class is the Jedi Guardian. They use one lightsaber at all times, no dual wielding here. Their offhands are either focuses or shield generators. So yes, this is potentially a tank class. The thing is, let's jump straight into passives right now. As a Sith warrior, get back up, we have armor proficiency medium. But as a Juggernaut, we have armor proficiency heavy. And this caused a little bit of a black spot in the Operations endgame raiding community because, well, from the let's start from the basics. Remember how we were talking about might armorings? By default, you are not allowed to need roll on something that doesn't have your main stat in it. This created a problem. However, you also aren't allowed to need roll on things outside your weight class. This created the problem that the Juggernauts were able to roll on Marauder gear, need, and win it, but then Marauders weren't able to need roll against Juggernauts on the heavy gear if that dropped. So there was quite a lot of bitterness going on between there, so eventually they got given what's called adaptive gear. Yeah, if you look right down at the bottom here, it says requires adaptive armor. So basically, this armor will adjust itself to match your heaviest weight stat. And all the might gear was converted into adaptive armor. Eventually they just made everything into adaptive armor, so while you can still see things that say needs heavy armor or needs medium armor, chances are you're going to be able to wear it no matter how accurate it looks because it doesn't have main stats anymore, and the armor weight doesn't matter either. So, all that said,
you're looking fit and deadly, as always.
Let's start things off the old-fashioned way by showing what we do at the base. For sleep, we remember that. It's a gap closer, it builds a little bit of focus. Assault. Generate 2 rage. Inflict weapon damage with a series of quick melee attacks. Attacks with both weapons if dual wielding. Slash. Vicious slash. Slash the target with weapon damage. And again, with dual wielding, you get both weapons, but you can't dual wield in this class. Smash. Force attack. Smash up to 8 enemies, dealing kinetic damage. With 8 enemies within 5 meters, deal kinetic damage. Stun weaken standard enemies for 2 seconds. And we also have Sweeping Slash for spamming it if we need to burn off our rage quickly. Because we don't get focus here, we get rage. Sundering Assault. Generate 5 rage and strike the target with weapon damage. Sunder the target. Sunder targets have their armor reduced by 20% for 45 seconds. So it's a bit reminiscent of the Zealous Strike that we had on our Sentinel video, but it doesn't have the weapon requirement, and instead of the beatdown, it sunders the target. Sabre Ward, we know how that works. There's a defense ability, a coin flip of dodging the attack. Retaliation, however, this is new. Retaliate against the target for weapon damage. This cannot be parried, dodged, or miss. Retaliation can only be used after successfully defending against a melee or ranged attack, or after one of your melee attacks is parried, dodged, or misses. Originally, this was actually a shared ability by the base class, but for some reason they got rid of it, and I don't like that, because it had its uses in single-player content. Even if it doesn't have operations, groups, or PvP uses, it's still there, and I hated that it left. Now then, Force Scream, Force Attack. Deal damage. In addition, standard and weak enemies are stunned for 4 seconds. Ravage. The name hasn't changed, but the animation has. This used to be a 3-second channel attack. I don't like that it changed. Chilling Scream is new. Chill up to 8 enemies within 8 meters, dealing elemental damage and reducing movement speed by 50%. I don't know how many seconds though, because again, the interface is in the way. "8 seconds, so that's actually quite a long time. Taunt. Taunt the target, forcing it to attack you for 6 seconds. Player targets deal less damage when attacking someone other than you. Threatening Scream. Taunt all enemies within 15 meters, forcing them to attack you. Wait, no. This has a different effect based on tank or non-tank stance. If utilizing Soresu form. If not, threat will immediately be reduced by a moderate amount. It causes affected target players to deal with 30% less damage for 6 seconds when attacking someone other than you. So then, Force Choke. This is your crowd control. Choke the target, stunning it for 4 seconds. Deal kinetic damage and build 3 rage over the duration. You can channel it while moving, something that I didn't show with the Jedi Knight, sorry. But yeah, that was an important addition over the years. Enrage. Immediately generate 6 rage. So you can cap out at the start of a fight if you don't fall asleep in. And then Disruption. This is what you'd think. It's your interrupt skill. Furious Power is going to be familiar. Consume all charges. Applies Furious Power stacks to you. Each direct single target melee attack increases by 25% and consumed whenever you deal damage with these attacks. Recharges once every... gains 1 ability charge every 30 seconds. Intimidating Roar. Paralyze up to 8 nearby enemies in fear, preventing all action for 6 seconds. Damage ends the effect prematurely. We also have Guard. While active, the guarded player takes 5% less damage and generates 25% less threat. If you remain within 15 meters, 50% of all damage is directed to you. Here we have something else that's kind of interesting, and I'm glad that Brunmark is here for me to demonstrate. Intercede! Leap to a friendly target, reducing his or her threat by a moderate amount and reducing damage taken by 20% for 6 seconds. So you can actually move about the battlefield pretty quickly because not only do we have that, but we have Force Push. Deal kinetic damage, knock the target back several meters, knock them down for 2 seconds. It immediately finishes the cooldown on Force Charge. So you can actually get about the battlefield pretty efficiently, as long as you have someone to get at. Sabre Reflect. Reflect all direct single target ranged, force and tech attacks back at the attacker for 3 seconds. The damage done by each reflect is capped, but the cap rises with each new rank of the ability. And then we have Mad Dash, which is what you think it is. Dash hits your dash skill, useful for getting some distance so you can leap back in, or just for getting around without a target to leap to. Vicious Throw. Throw the main hand lightsaber at a target, dealing weapon damage. Only usable at targets at or below 30% HP. So it's your execute skill. Over here we have Sabre Throw. A long-range attack. Throw the main hand lightsaber at the distant target, inflicting weapon damage and building 3 rage. You can have a lot of rage at the start of a fight, let's be fair. More than I can get rid of quickly at any rate. We have Endure Pain. Temporarily increase your maximum health by 30% for 10 seconds. When the effect ends, the health is lost. So a useful way to buy some extra time for yourself, but not a perfect one. And something we can't show here, Enrage Defense. Empower you with 12 charges of Enrage Defense, lasting up to 15 seconds. When you take damage, a charge is consumed to heal you. This ability can be used while stunned or otherwise controlled, but not above 70% health. Now here's the thing, 164 HP, 11k, so it takes about 16 charges to fully heal. When you go to lower level planets, your abilities, basically they have level lock, but you don't lose any of your abilities. And some of them don't scale down well. I've known Enrage Defense to fully heal per charge. It's really stupid. Now, with all of that said, let's look at some exclusives, or passives. We know what all these are. I forgot to mention. Force Might. Increase target's melee, ranged, force, and tech bonus damage and healing by 5%. This is the class buff. Channel Hatred is your out of combat heal. And something I haven't mentioned but everybody has. Sprint. Increase movement speed by 35% while not in combat. So speed boosts normally don't seem like much, but that's out of combat. In combat they're actually pretty significant. If we look at Juggernaut, we have proficiency in focuses, armor proficiency for heavy, and shield generators. Blade Turning. The first 2 seconds of Sabre Ward grant 100% melee and ranged defense. Very nice. Endless Rage. Generate 1 rage when attacked. This effect can't occur more than once every 6 seconds. We know what Guard is. Raging Assault. Reduce the cooldowns of Sundering Assault and Raging Assault by 3 seconds each. Increase the rage they generate by 2. Single Saber Mastery. Increase the damage dealt by your weapon by 20%. And something also to go back into here. Shicho Form. We all remember that from the Sentinel video, don't we? That's what we have at the base. So, let's start at the base when we look at things in a bit more complexity. Rage. Raging Burst. Blast the target with a powerful burst of force energy dealing kinetic damage. Increase the damage dealt by Smash by 40%. Reduce the cooldowns of Smash and Raging Burst by 3 seconds each. Increase armor penetration by 15% and force attack damage by 3% with Shicho Mastery. So this is the shared skill tree. Sabre Strength. Increase damage dealt with saber attacks by 5%. Increase the critical strike damage of all attacks by 15%. Obliterate. Jump to a target. Dealing a weapon damage and immobilizing for 1 second can be used while immobilized. Strike with both weapons if you're wielding. If it wasn't obvious that this is a shared skill tree before, it is now. Because yes, reminder, Force Leap doesn't work on targets in cover. Obliterate does. Reduce the cooldown of Obliterate by 3 seconds. Causes your next Force Charge in Obliterate to make Force Scream deal 5% more damage and generate rage rather than consuming it. Assault, Sundering Assault, Vicious Slash, Sweeping Slash, Retaliation, Force Scream, Vicious Throw, and Furious Strike reduce the active cooldowns of Smash, Raging Burst, and Obliterate by 1 second, and Enrage by 2 seconds. Force Charge and Obliterate make your next Smash or Raging Burst used within 20 seconds an automatic critical hit. Increase all damage dealt by 5% for 6 seconds after dealing damage with Smash or Raging Burst. It can't occur more than once every 8 seconds. Force Crush. Progressively slow the target from 50% to 5% movement speed over 3 seconds and deal kinetic damage each second. At the end of the duration, the target is crushed and takes additional kinetic damage. Enrage and Force Crush grant Shockwave, increasing the damage dealt by your next Smash or Raging Burst by 15%, and they consume no rage. Additionally, the cooldown of Enrage is reduced by 15 seconds, and Enrage generates an additional 6 rage over 6 seconds when used. Obliterate and Force Crush each consume 1 less rage. Increase the critical strike chance of Vicious Throw and Furious Strike by 15%. Additionally, Intercede now purges all movement impairing effects. Vicious Slash, Sweeping Slash, and Retaliation deal additional force energy damage. Strike the target for weapon damage, attacks with both weapons if dual wielding. Furious Strike enables Retaliation and beats down the target. Beat down targets take more damage from melee attacks. Activating Raging Burst or Smash increases damage reduction by 10% for 6 seconds. This can't occur more than once every 8 seconds. Force Crush grants Fuming Rage, making your next Obliterate or Furious Strike cause no rage. Right, this one's Furious Strike. So, you can sort of see the parallels here, and the thing is, this is why the Juggernaut is considered better for this spec than the Marauder ever was, because unlike Marauder, who had to build up Sentinel had to build up centering stacks in order to get their early game rage, but no, as Juggernaut you just get it even before the fight starts with Enrage. But there's also that you can use Force Push to get another Force Charge in almost immediately. So you just get a lot more. Anyhow, that little weird caveat aside, let's look at their specific damage spec, the Vengeance spec. Starts off with Shatter. Channel the force into your lightsaber and crushes your target under its weight, instantly dealing internal damage with a further internal damage over 12 seconds. In other words, a bleed. So yes, the Guardian version of this involves a lot of elemental damage instead. Xian form. Utilize an aggressive lightsaber form, increasing all damage by 6% and movement speed by 15%. All attacks that consume rage will refund 1 rage when used. Smash and Vengeful Slam. Spread your bleed effects to all targets they damage if at least one of the targets is already affected by bleeds. In addition, Sweeping Slash deals 25% more damage to bleeding targets. Rampage. Shatter finishes the active cooldown of Ravage and generates 3 rage. So you're going to get to use Ravage quite a bit too. Force Scream causes the target to bleed for internal damage over 6 seconds. Impale. Impale the target for weapon damage. Reduces the cooldown of Smash and Vengeful Slam by 6 seconds each. Both abilities no longer consume rage. I have to know, Vengeful Slam does actually cost 3 rage. But you only learn it after you learn Ruin, which removes the cost outright. That's kind of weird and funny. Ravager. Melee attacks deal 5% more damage, and the damage they dealt by Ravage is increased by an additional 5%. Vengeance. Reduce the cooldown of Impale by 6 seconds and Force Scream by 3 seconds. Eviscerate. Impale causes the target to bleed for internal damage over 6 seconds. And beats down the target for 45 seconds. Beat down targets take 5% more damage from melee attacks. Vengeance? We went through that one. We didn't go through Hue. Hurl the main hand lightsaber at a target, dealing weapon damage and slowing its movement speed by 50% for 3 seconds. Only usable on targets at or below 30% health. It replaces Vicious Throw. So an upgrade to your Dispatch Execute skill. Sundering Throw. Reduce the cooldown of Sabre Throw by 5 seconds, and Sabre Throw now sunders the target for 45 seconds. The thing is, you also already got sundered on Sundering Assault, so this feels redundant. I guess it's for the opener. And the 5-second reduction. Force Charge grants Brawn, providing immunity to interrupts, stuns, knockdowns, and incapacitating effects for 4 seconds. Additionally, during this time, damage reduction is increased by 20%. This is mean, because the first thing you do when you're interrupted by someone is try to stun or crowd control them or get them out of your face. And this lets you just bypass that entirely. Savagery. Shatter, Impale, Hue, and Vengeful Slam increase the critical chance of your next Force Scream by 50%. It lasts 15 seconds and it stacks up to 2 times. So you've got guaranteed crits on your Force Scream in this spec. Increased damage reduction by 5% at all times, and an additional 15% while Endure Pain is active. Vengeful Slam. Slam your weapon on the ground, causing a force-empowered shockwave that deals energy damage to up to 8 enemies within 5 meters. Stuns standard and weak enemies for 3 seconds. It replaces Smash. Destroyer. Increase damage dealt by your bleed effect by 15%. Additionally, Ravage and Bleed have a 30% chance to trigger Destroyer. Finishing the cooldown on Hue, and your next Hue consumes no rage and can be used on a target with any health level. Can't get it more than once every 20 seconds. So not only do you get an upgraded Execute, you also get to use it a lot more often. Gushing Veins. Increase the critical chance of Shatter, Vengeful Slam, and Bleeding effects by 10%. Bloodmaster. For each of your bleeding effects active on a target, you deal 5% more bleed damage, up to a 15% more bleed damage, while all 3 of Shatter, Draining Scream, and Eviscerate are each bleeding a target. So you want to try and stack all your bleeds on someone at once. And finally, our utility, the tank spec of Immortal. We start off with Aegis Assault. Increase damage reduction by 3% for 20 seconds, generate 6 rage, Deal weapon damage to the target with a series of quick melee attacks. Replaces Sundering Assault. Soresu form. Utilize a defensive lightsaber form, increasing armor rating by 61.5%, damage reduction by 6%, shield chance by 15%, threat generation by 150%, and accuracy by 10%. While utilizing Soresu form, all damage dealt is reduced by 10% and assault abilities generate 1 less rage. And I just remembered something. Originally, there was a stacking effect on this. You had to get up to 5 stacks for the full benefit. But similar to Arsenal Missile, the whole stacking thing just meant up you were in a conflict with people that needed to rest between each fight. So, yeah, it's a good thing that they made it just one buff you need to keep going. Now, Smash deals 75% more damage, but it consumes 2 less rage. Additionally, the crit chance of Sweeping Slash and Ravage is increased by 30%. Targets damaged by Smash and Sweeping Slash become unsteady. Unsteady targets have their melee and ranged accuracy decreased by 5% for 45 seconds. Additionally, damage dealt by Force Scream is increased by 40%. Lash Out. Retaliation consumes less rage. It no longer causes a global cooldown, so it's now an off the global cooldown attack. Very handy. Additionally, you get a ranged and melee defense increase by 3%. Crushing Blow. Crush the target beneath a powerful blow, dealing weapon damage, enabling retaliation, and impairing the target for 45 seconds. Impaired targets deal 5% less damage with their force and tech attacks. If you're protected by Aegis Assault, it damages up to 7 additional nearby enemies for the same amount. It doesn't damage enemies that break out of crowd control on damage. This attack also knocks down all affected standard and weak enemies, generates a high amount of threat. I don't get why Rule of 2 is what it's called, because this is just increase armor rating by 15%. When your guarded target is attacked, your movement speed is increased by 30% for 6 seconds. Retaliation raises a blade barricade, increasing your defense chances by 5% for 10 seconds. So if Retaliation is activated by a defense, then it's going to raise your chances for a defense. Yeah, it still has it after defending against a melee or ranged attack. Because originally that was the only thing that triggered Retaliation. So it really didn't have much use for the Sentinels, unless you were in single player content as the main person getting attacked. But then it was a useful thing off the cooldown, and not only did they remove it from Sentinels, but on the Juggernauts, you ended up having it go back onto the global cooldown. Anyhow, all that said, reduce the rate limit which Endless Rage can generate rage by 3 seconds. Reduces rage consumed by Force Scream, Vicious Slash, Sweeping Slash, and Crushing Blow by 1. Additionally, Vicious Slash and Sweeping Slash inflict their targets with trauma, reducing healing received from all sources by 20% for 6 seconds. Force Grip. Force Choke deals 100% more damage, generates 100% more threat, and activates instantly. So it's no longer channeled, it just has its full effect over the duration. And then we have Backhand. Bash the target for kinetic damage, stunning it for 4 seconds. This ability generates a high amount of threat. So this means that we have 2 hard stuns on our Juggernaut now. And despite what you think, Backhand isn't a melee attack, it's considered force. That's very important. Mainly because you know that it won't eat or use a charge of Furious Power. Now then, 44. Sonic Barrier. Activating Force Scream grants Sonic Barrier, absorbing damage. Lasts up to 10 seconds. Conquering Defense. Increase your shield chance by 4%, reduce the cooldown of Sabre Ward by 30 seconds. Additionally, targets affected by Intimidating Roar deal 15% less melee and ranged damage for 10 seconds after the paralyzing effect ends. Targets immune to the paralyzing effect will immediately suffer from the damage reduction. So now it's sort of an AoE defensive bonus, even if you can't get the stun off. Revenge. Parrying, parrying, deflecting, shielding, or resisting an attack has a 50% chance to grant revenge, reducing the rage consumed by your next Force Scream or Vicious Throw by 1. It lasts up to 12 seconds and stacks up to 3 times. Dark Blood. Increase the duration of Endure Pain by 10 seconds. Increase your elemental and internal damage reduction by 5%. Invincible is granted at level 58. With a cooldown of 3 minutes, reduce all damage taken by 40% for 10 seconds. I remember reading that the Juggernaut is actually best for going past the Enrage timer on fights, because Enrages aren't very interesting in this game. They're all just give 300% damage boost to the boss. Not very fun. But it also means that Juggernauts are pretty good at holding their ground for a bit longer. Consuming Power. Increase crit chance of Smash and Crushing Blow by 20%. Additionally, Aegis Assault deals an additional 30% damage and increases shield absorption by 3%. Pillar of Strength. Reduce the cooldown of Invincible by 30 seconds. Increase damage dealt by Backhand, Ravage, and Crushing Blow by 15%. We cap it all off with Defensive Slashes. Dealing damage with Ravage increases your defense chance by 2%, stacks up to 3 times, lasts for 6 seconds. This is a pretty bad victim of the change from a channel to just a single attack. Not because you don't get the full stacks. You do. It's just that you'd get the first stack early in the cast, and then by the time you finish it, you'd be at your 3rd stack, so you'd have the 6% defense chance. It's just that it would give a bit longer defense. I really miss the old Ravage and the old Blade Dance skills. But anyway, Vengeance is actually something I'm not too familiar with, which is why we're getting that first while we talk about the utilities. Payback. Reduce the cooldown of Unleash by 30 seconds. Unleash will heal you for 10% when used. Warmonger. Getting attacked reduces the active cooldown of Force Charge by a second. Can't occur more than once every 1.5 seconds. Ravage immobilizes the target for 3 seconds. That's very familiar. Sweeping Slash deals 25% more damage. Taking non-periodic area of effect damage generates 2 rage. Can't occur more than once per second. You generate 4 rage when stunned, immobilized, put to sleep, or knocked around. We're going to have that happen to us a lot, so we'll take that. Whenever your movement is impaired, you gain a 10% bonus to your next ability that consumes rage. This can stack up to 5 times and lasts 15 seconds. So if someone's holding you at arm's length with a bunch of slows and roots, you can get back at them with this. Sonic Wall. Threatening Scream protects all allies within range, excluding yourself, with a barrier that absorbs damage. Lasts up to 10 seconds. We need the faster Unleash, let's be honest. Okay, for Immortal Discipline, Smash slows the targets it damages for 10 seconds. For everything else, Smash and Vengeful Slam sunder the targets they damage for 45 seconds. Reduce the cooldown of Force Choke by 15 seconds. Force Charge grants Unstoppable, granting immunity to movement impairing effects and effects that push or pull you for 4 seconds. Handy. Activating Enrage purges movement impairing effects and increases movement speed by 50% for 6 seconds. When you exit combat, the active cooldowns of Force Charge, Enrage, and Sabre Throw are reduced by 100%. So useless in operations, but very good if you're doing single player content, or minor flashpoints, or PvP. Okay, so for Vengeance and Rage, all area effect damage is reduced by 60% for 60 seconds, for 60% for 15 seconds after Threatening Scream is activated. For Mortal, reduce damage taken while stunned by 30%. It's kind of weird that they hid that in the tank spec, so not useful here. Enrage Defense increases your movement speed by 50%, grants movement immunity to movement impairing effects while active. So we actually do have quite a bit of ways to get movement impairing effects immunities. And Endure Pain cleanses all cleansable effects when activated. And for our heroic skill points, Force Charge enables your next Vicious Throw or Hew to be used against a target with any % of health, lasts 15 seconds. Reduce the cooldown of Enrage Defense by 30 seconds. Mad Dash can be used while immobilized, purges movement impairing effects, and deals 50% more damage. Additionally, the cooldown is reduced by 10 seconds. Chilling Scream deals elemental damage to all effective enemies over 8 seconds. Additionally, it grants Chilling Speed, increasing your movement speed by 35% for 8 seconds. Reduce the cooldown of Force Push Intimidating Roar by 15 seconds. Additionally, Sabre Throw immobilizes the target for 3 seconds. Increase the range of Force Scream to 30 meters, but it deals reduced damage beyond 10 meters. Additionally, Force Push deals more damage and grants Extending Roar, allowing your next Force Scream to deal full damage regardless of distance from the target. So that's a good way to give yourself another attack to use outside of the 10 meter range. And for something like Vengeance, where Force Scream is actually really important, well really, I think it's important for all the Juggernauts specs. It lets you keep your cooldown, your rotations going if distance is created. Force Charge finishes the cooldown on Disruption. In addition, Sabre Reflect lasts 2 seconds longer, and if you're in tank spec, it generates a high amount of threat on all engaged enemies, within 330 meters when inactivated. And then we have, finally, Reckoning. So, Intercede grants Reckoning, increasing the damage dealt by your next melee ability by 20%. It lasts for 10 seconds. Additionally, reduce the cooldown of Intercede by 5 seconds, reduce the threat and damage taken by an additional 10% for each friendly target of Intercede. So, I think that means that there's actually a specific... There's a gear set or tactical that must increase its ability to cover people. But anyway, we're currently hovering over the Imperial fleet. That's not where we want to go. We want to go to Oricon. Because, after talking it all over, we want to show what it's like in battle, even though I'm probably going to be terrible at it. I also need to make sure that when I land, I swell all my abilities back to their keybinds, because we want to get that right. Vengeful Slam is where it should be. Shatter. Impale. I guess the problem is that, just like the Combat Sentinel, it has a lot of replacement abilities, so if you swap between them a lot, you're going to have a problem of... well, you're going to have to replace all of your base abilities alongside your new abilities. Anyhow, we have our Jedi Apprentice here. She's only slightly corrupt. She's invisible, but she is only slightly corrupted. Let's show what it's like. We leap in. Intimidating roar. Sunder him. Q. Force choke. Blah blah blah. By making him really unhappy with bleeds. It's not too complicated, really. But we have over here our favourite group to get into punch-ups with. And they're all getting hit by the Sabre Reflex skill. It's very nice to start things off with. I don't want them picking on my healer Jacer though, so... Yeah, that's bad. That's a good reason to use Intercede. We need these guys taken out immediately. Fortunately, she's actually quite... My companion is actually able to keep herself alive quite well. Certainly not something you can say about player healers. Rude.
You're not going to surrender, are you?
You do actually get a little warning proc of, hey, your force scream or your Q ability are prepared. It's a cackle, just like a lot of other proc sounds in this game. I get the feeling that I actually want to be Shatter on Shift Z, because that's, well, that's where I usually keep important things for my Juggernaut in his combo. It's just that, well, I have a keybind here because I need it for Obliterate if I ever feel like playing the Smash discipline. And because his accuracy is kind of poor, she actually resisted the force choke. That's kind of unfortunate. Now, with all that said and done, let's swap specs. We do still want this one on our Smash spec because we no longer have the immunity to crowd control after a leap. Now then, there are actually other players around. So hopefully I won't get interfered with too much. And I did not reset my setup. Whoops. So yeah, the thing is that as a Juggernaut, you've got a lot more ways of getting that forced crit on your smash, but you've also got ways to open up each fight with Enrage. You can start off each fight with a lot more rage, and it just ends up being this is the better version of the Spec. Question is, what's Obliterate doing way over there? Anyhow, we have bosses to hunt now. Let's go a little differently to normal. One over here, but at least we can do it with the right setup, I guess. Again, it's all about saving up for that one strong crit. Ah, that's where it went. We want to swap these two around. I knew there was something I was missing. Would have been a bit troublesome if we went up against a boss without a single target crit skill. Speaking of which, let's try cycling around and hit him from the front, as opposed to rushing through that group and having to fight our way through. Radiant Burst, Obliterate. Oh dear, we have to finish this immediately because he's... Actually, maybe... Rude. And we are in serious trouble now. Honestly, if there's anything that I want to do this with, it would actually be as a Immortal Juggernaut, simply so I can survive the whole thing, but... This might be a time for Enrage Defense, though. Yeah, you see how quickly things got messed up there. Okay, time for our emergency response. This is the strength of having a high legacy. Or at least it would be if I could get these stupid things off. Yeah, you see the problem is that they can just chain their stun effects together. We got really close though, I'm proud of myself for that. We can't swap specs while we're in stealth though. But what I can do is pull them away from each other. You're not the only one with crowd control, mate. Man, I am just not getting off any of these force chokes. My utility classes just don't have the accuracy I need. Oh, not again! Okay, now we can take this guy out. The problem is that when it comes to MMOs, I prefer to leave things in the order that I learned them, unless very specific circumstances change that. And so that means that important parts of the rotation aren't quite in the place that it should be. It's a very basic spec, but it's also a very effective one. Provided you can get your attacks off. Sometimes that's not an option. Now then, that mess over and done with. I feel, actually there was one thing about mods that I forgot to mention. You install them into your weapon, if you install them into your equipment flat out, and you don't remove the previous mod, then the mod is destroyed. You can remove it. However, it is actually quite the credit sink. That's not a good example. That's the sort of money we're talking about. It's a serious waste of money, let's be honest. Anyhow, we need to make sure that everything's in its right place. Yep, I'd say everything's in the right place. So, tanking. I find that Aegis Assault and Crushing Blow are generally used back to back simply because they have identical cooldown times, so you might as well follow one up with the other. It starts to get a bit staggered when you have to deal with crowd control heavy enemies though. But what are the chances of running into those, right? We need that Sabre Reflect after all. Now, is there a boss around here I can beat down? Probably should have aimed for one of the ones that would clear a path, to be honest. But we all know where our favourite dual saber wielder is, right? Actually, time to show off what Sabre Reflect can really do. The fact that it repels damage taken straight back at whoever's using it on you is kind of mean, but also kind of awesome for the tank class, because now, just by being attacked first, being the person who opens up, you can ensure that everyone's taking a lot of damage from you right at the start. And now, how it fares against the boss. This is just having a fun time, don't mind her. And there's that accuracy that we need kicking in. The accuracy bonus for tanks is actually kind of important because their gear doesn't have room to have accuracy. He needs to go into defense and shield and absorb. Keep people interrupted for a pretty long time in this spec. Just look at this. Well, okay, I think I forgot how that one works, but the fact that disruption resets on a force charge, and you have the ability to create distance needed for a force charge.
All heals.
Do not underestimate the Juggernaut like I did when I first played.
Goodbye.
But anyway, that's that. That's the Sith Juggernaut shown off. Until next time, guys, take care. We'll see you all
Next
around.
time, try not to get so banged up.